Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee meeting to order. Janice, roll call, please.
Certainly. City of Banning, City of Calamasa, City of Canyon Lake, here. City of Corona,
here.
City of Eastvale,
Here.
City of Hemet, here. City of Yoruba Valley, City of Lake Elsinore,
Here.
City of Menifee, here. City of Moreno Valley,
Here.
City of Murrieta, City of Norco, yes. City of Paris, here. City of Riverside, City of San Jacinto, City of Temecula.
I am here.
Thank you, sir. City of Wildemar. Here. County of Riverside District 1. Here. County of Riverside District 2. County of Riverside District 3.
Here.
County of Riverside District 5. Eastern Municipal Water District. Here. Western Municipal Water District. Here. Morongo Band of Mission Indians. Here. Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. WRCOG TAC Chair. That concludes roll call. We have quorum.
Thank you. Supervisor Jeffers, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we have public comments. I have one person, Sheena Patel, from the Riverside University Health System, Public Health.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me from Riverside University Health Systems Public Health. I'm here to invite you all to our Community Health Improvement Plan Work Group meeting. I believe everyone has a flyer with them. It's on May 23rd, and we've been working for about a year and a half on developing this Community Health Improvement Plan with community members, organizations, partners, and we're going to be working and delving into these 4 priority areas, which are creating healthy communities, promoting healthy behaviors, connecting and investing in people, and improving access to care. So on May 23rd, we'll be looking into those and improving those priority areas, and then on July 20th, we'll be presenting the work of those work groups at our annual CHIP meeting. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you there.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have the consent calendar, items 5A through O. Are there any requests to speak on any items? Yep. Then I'll bring it to the dais for your pleasure. A motion by Banning, a second by Hemet. Please vote.
County of Riverside District 1, please vote.
And that passes 18-0. All right, our first report, 6A, Hero Program Activities Update. Barbara Spoonhour.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm Barbara Spoonhour, Director of Energy and Environmental Programs. I do have one change to my staff report today. We are adding 3 cities, Danuba, Orange Cove, and Wheatland as associate members as part of the action. The HERO program provides financing for energy efficiency, water conservation, and renewable energy projects for residential and commercial projects, property owners, and then that financing is placed on the property owner's tax bill for replacement or for repayment. So there's a number of items that I'm going to cover today, provide with a general overview, talk about custom product applications, Assembly Bill 2693, the DeBobney bill, a realtor update, and then some measures that have always been in place and they're being enhanced to ensure consumer protections with the HERO program. So just as an overview, after today's actions of holding a public hearing and accepting the new associate members. There'll be 319 jurisdictions that are part of the California Hero Program. We have over 13,000 applications that have been submitted, over 45,000 projects that have actually been completed for nearly $1 billion in projects in the WRCOG and California Hero Program. On the sub-regional side of things, we have completed over 19,000 projects for over $362 million, with over 30,000 applications being approved in our sub-region. And again, this equates to about $627 million in an economic impact into the sub-region, with over 3,075 jobs being created and or retained because of the HERO program. And 740,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions being reduced, as well as over 272 gigawatt hours of energy being saved from the program. In your folders, you do have your individual jurisdictional numbers, as well as the supervisors have for their districts as well. On the California Hero side, the statewide program, again, we've had nearly 50,000 applications approved for the program, with over 26,000 projects being completed for over $556 million. Again, the benefits of the program, over $1 billion of economic stimulus into California because of the California Hero program, with over 4,912 jobs, 973,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions being reduced, with 361 gigawatt hours of energy being saved on an annual basis. For your consideration today, we did receive a custom product application from a property owner in the city of Bakersfield that's requesting to have a natural gas fireplace insert installed and to replace their existing wood-burning fireplace. Since this type of product is not outlined as a specific eligible improvement through the HERO program, it does need to come before the Executive Committee for approval. The property owner's application and backup materials on the project have been provided as attachments to the staff reports from page 163 through 184. The product does meet the criteria of AB 811 and has additional co-benefits of improving air quality by reducing PM 2.5. The project is eligible for the federal tax credit and is also eligible for the San Joaquin Air Pollution Control District's rebate for their natural gas insert, and WRCOG staff is recommending that the Executive Committee approve the application today. To provide you with an update on AB 2693, which is the DeBobney bill that specifically talks about PACE and contractual assessments, there has been some updates. The bill has been amended, but still includes damaging language against PACE programs regarding the subordination. Our second vice chair, Debbie Franklin, did appear at the banking committee a week and a half ago. Was not able to testify, but was able to get a one-on-one with Assemblyman DeBobney to get our comments submitted into the record and talk about why WRCOG opposes AB 2693. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Local Government. We did submit another opposition letter. The hearing is set for May 4th, and Vice Chair Ben Benoit will be providing testimony as to why WRCOG once again is in opposition of 2693. On April 19th through the 21st, WRCOG did send a delegation back to Washington, D.C. to meet with our legislators and other agencies. The delegation included WRCOG's chair, Brian Tisdale, as well as our vice chair, Ben Benoit, our executive director, Rick Bishop, and myself. The meetings were very well received, and we were able to talk about the successes and challenges of the HERO program and really talk about the anticipated release of the Federal Housing Agency, FHA's guidelines regarding PACE programs that we really hope to see come out here in the near future. To provide you with an update on our WRCOG's interactions with the real estate community, WRCOG Renovate America, as well as the Government Affairs Director of the Realtors Associations in Southwest Riverside County have agreed to convene a working group really to continue our discussions that we've had, get their input on consumer protections, marketing, and disclosures of the HERO program and out to the public. We anticipate that our initial meeting will be about mid-May, and that's what we're striving for, with an overall goal of, just keeping our communication lines open and back and forth so that we can get some resolution with the real estate community. When we looked at developing our AB 811 program, we could have gone in two different directions. We could have either allowed a third party to run the program and been very hands-off, or we could have been involved in a program. Because we believe consumer protections were important to us when we started our program, and we continue to know that they are important to us, we chose to be very involved in a program. The HERO program, as you can see, provides and continues to provide more consumer protections than any other form of financing available. With our involvement, property owners actually have a place to go when they have a complaint, unlike if they would have used cash, credit card, or a home equity loan when they have a problem with their contractor. So we're fortunate with the fact that we're able to address those concerns that would otherwise go unheard. I'd like to take some time to review the programs and processes that have been in place and continue to be in place regarding the HERO program. We have HERO Protect, HERO Property Advisors, or HPA, our property owner protections, our consumer complaints process, our contractor trainings, and the contractor disciplinary actions, as well as marketing of the HERO program. The HERO Protect is staffed by 23 former police and utility investigators to investigate contractor complaints regarding the HERO program or any other type of contractor energy project. They provide customers with guidance and information about contractors, and they offer dispute resolutions when needed. They work to ensure that the customers are getting and agreeing to the scope of services that fall within the HERO financing, and we are not financing projects or improvements that are not qualified for the HERO program. We ensure that the necessary permits are pulled for projects moving forward, and we also do not make any payments to the contractors until the homeowner has signed off that the job is complete to their satisfaction. Our HERO Property Advisors, or HPA, is staffed by former real estate professionals, and they provide assistance not only to the buyer, the seller, the agents, the title, escrow, and lenders. HPA reaches out to listing agents and homeowners when a home goes on the market. They also provide a copy of the preliminary title report so that it is highlighted where the HERO assessment is, so that information is disclosed to the new potential buyer. The HPA advisors also can recommend lenders that will allow the HERO assessment to automatically transfer if their lender is not willing to allow that, or is not willing to or want us to subordinate our assessment. They answer questions about how we can subordinate the assessment so that their refis or sales can go through. We work to make sure that when the property owner is refinancing or selling, that they're aware of all the options that are available to get through the process with the HERO assessment. HPA continues to assist realtors by providing workshops and educational sessions. To date, in our sub-region alone, we've done over 100 workshops that have been conducted where we're able to answer questions and address concerns with over 4,000 real estate professionals. The HERO program works hard to ensure that the property owners are protected really throughout the process, from the start of the project by knowing that project costs are within certain tolerances, during the project by knowing that the project must have its permits pulled, and by the end of the projects by not paying the contractor until the property owner has signed off that the work is complete and to their satisfaction. Again, these have always been in place and will continue to be in place. When we talk about consumer complaints, we have received and this number includes LA County as well as San Bernardino County. But we've received over 261,000 applications since May of 2013. And looking at the number of what's a major complaint, minor complaint, really only 0.2% have voiced a complaint through this application process. When we look at major complaints, we're looking at workmanship, job abandonment. When we're looking at minor complaints, we're talking about not understanding the terms of the financing, whether it's 5, 10, 15 interest rates, and all of those details. Our contractors must be registered. We do provide them with what they can and can't say, how contractor complaints are handled. I'll go over how contractors are then possibly removed from the program for not complying with the program. I think the biggest thing I really want to make aware is if you know of a specific violation, please let myself or my staff know so that we can really correct the issue. It's hard for us to correct something that we do not know of. To be a registered contractor, we make sure that the contractors have an active California State License Board license number. They do have to provide that number so that we can verify it. That ensures that they're insured and bonding is compatible. We do make them sign a contractor participation agreement, terms and conditions. We make sure that they have to comply with those terms and conditions. All contractors must register their salespeople and their office administrators, so that way we can track down to the individual person if a complaint comes in and able to ID that person specifically. Again, we do instruct our contractors on what they can and can't say to the property owner, and it's very important to us, and we stress this continuously to the contractors. The contractors can talk about their positive experiences using the HERO program. They can talk about how an upgrade may increase the property's value, but cannot say it will increase. They can talk about the positive impacts that, again, that it's had on their business. They cannot communicate that the HERO assessment will automatically transfer with the property to the next new buyer. They cannot say that HERO is a government program, that the assessment is tax deductible. They cannot reference themselves to being an employee of WRCOG, Renovate, HERO, or a government agency. And they cannot say that they are the only contractor offering the HERO program in their area. And this is just one example of the materials that we do provide out to the contractors so that they can have that on hand of what not to say and what they can say. And we really want to stress what they can't say. For marketing, we again provide very strict guidelines on how they can use the HERO brand. We do offer bilingual materials. We also send out regular notifications and reminders on how to represent the program. Contractors are very specifically told not to use the jurisdictional logos when they are advertising their program. This is a complete violation. And again, if you're aware of any violations, please let myself or my staff know, because we really want to take corrective action with any contractors that are going outside of the scope. So what happens when there is a complaint? And we do take all of our complaints seriously. There's a number of issues that we look at when a complaint comes in. We look at the type of issue, whether it's a matter of a misunderstanding of the HERO terms or is it regarding poor workmanship, the severity of the matter, is this a service issue, or is this actual intentional misconduct? Individual involvement, is this a single person or a company-wide issue? A pattern, has there been previous complaints, same complaint, repetitive issues, cooperativeness of the company, is the company working with us and the property owner to resolve the issue? And do they have controls in place to eliminate future issues? Do they already have those controls in place, or do they need those controls put in place to move forward? Once the issue has been examined, and if it's a severe issue, they do get removed from the program. To date, we've removed 63 contractors from the program, and they've been removed for a variety of reasons that are outlined in a slide, but include criminal activity, unethical conduct, fraud, poor workmanship, abandoning the project, ineligible products being installed, and providing cash rebates back to a property owner for using the HERO program. As part of our general update, we run data against the state licensing board, and when contractors come back with an inactive license number, they are automatically removed from the program. And to date, there's been over 1,200 that have an inactive contractor license, so they have been removed from participating in the program. We do have some new improvements that are going to be implemented over the next few months. These include we will be approving all marketing materials from the contractors that use the HERO program. This is a big undertaking, but we really feel that it's an important one, especially if we hear of contractors using jurisdictional logos, using government agency, government-backed programs. We want to make sure that we are catching this stuff before it's making its way out into the public. We'll begin calling back all property owners to ensure that they understand the terms and conditions. We currently do this for anyone over the age of 64 to confirm terms, but we are taking this with every application that will be coming through. And we will also be notifying the other PACE providers if we remove a contractor from our HERO program, with the goal that that contractor would not be able to take their bad habits over to another PACE program and continue a bad policy across the board and give PACE a bad name. As part of today's recommendations, actions, I'll asking the WRCOG Executive Committee to approve the custom product application for the natural gas fire insert that I talked about earlier. As part of the program update, an updated Exhibit B of the California HERO Program Report has been included as an attachment to the staff report. This map includes the jurisdictions that will be included in today's public hearing. These cities include the cities of Amador, Fortuna, Gonzales, Ione, Jackson, Orland, Plymouth, San Juan Bautista, San City, UKI, and Town of Morongo. Once the public hearing is concluded, I am asking the Executive Committee to adopt Resolution 12-16 to formalize these jurisdictions into the HERO program. I am also asking that the committee accept the following cities as associate members to WRCOG, and these include the cities of Campbell, Corcoran, Corning, Dinuba, Exeter, Farmsville, Live Oak, Mount Shasta, Orange Cove, Paso Robles, and Wheatland. After the acceptance of the aforementioned cities, I am asking the Executive Committee to adopt Resolution 13-16, setting their public hearing for June 6, 2016. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm not sure if the Chair, Vice Chair, or Second Vice Chair would like to talk about any of their experiences over the past few weeks.
Okay, we'll get to that. Let's do the public hearing first. So I open the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone on the phone?
Do we have anyone online for the California HERO program? I hear none.
Anyone in the public want to testify at this time? Anyone on the dais want to testify on the public hearing? Okay, I will close the public hearing at this time and bring it up for your pleasure. Calamasa.
Yeah, Barbara. A couple of little questions here. At the end of my last city council meeting, a particular realtor came up and said something that he had some real concerns about the HERO program and all PACE programs, because right now one of the biggest issues we have in the state of California is the affordability of housing, a lot of it due to land use issues, but certainly for a lot of people this works out real well. I can see how the HERO program can be great, but I've also seen where these become almost like a CFD or something else attached to that property. And so they see this coming along, and it's tougher to sell a lot of these houses. Now, I know you've been going over with a lot of attorneys on that. A couple other questions I have, too. I don't ever like to see something that says what contractors can and cannot say. In other words, it says you're not supposed to say that the HERO program is part of a government agency or something. What is it if it's not part of a government agency?
Do you want to continue, or do you want?
Yeah, do the second one first, and then we'll go back on them.
Sure. I think when we talk about not being part of a government agency, it's more a government-backed program, because you'll hear property owners who will call and say, I was told that this was a government-backed program, given the inclination that the government is providing the funding for the program, which is not the case. We are a government oversight program, which would be more the term that should be utilized, but not saying that this is a City of Calamasa program. Right. Along those lines. That is what we want. Do not want the contractors relaying to the property owners.
But what I'm saying is a lot of these where you say that it doesn't actually add any value to the home, because again, it looks like the general purpose is, now if it saves people on their energy bills, hey, that's great. But a lot of times it just ends up being, we're trying to get rid of greenhouse gases. And, you know, when somebody's going to come in and buy a home or do whatever, that's not real important to a lot of people. And if we're just adding another thing that stays with that house forever, because again, this is something that's put on their tax bill or whatever. I mean, something that if they don't pay, it goes right on there. Now, that goes to the second. Isn't this part of that bill that we're talking about that we don't agree with? Isn't that the point that this becomes a lien more important than other liens ahead of, say, the first or second mortgage on that house? And maybe you can answer that for me a little bit better.
Certainly. So the HERO is a voluntary assessment. It is attached to the property tax. It is a lien on a property that is a senior lien to the mortgage holder. When a property goes through a foreclosure or a tax sale, we have offered, when a property owner is going through that sale process, to contractually subordinate, which is for us, for WR, COG, and Renovate to move into the second position for that sale to go through. We're able to do that. Our subordinations, again, are contractual subordinations because our investor is comfortable. The rest of the PACE programs, whether they are government-owned or government-run programs, government oversight programs, or privately administered programs, don't all have that ability, and that is what's the issue in the DeBobney bill, the 2693. That's one of the big issues on the DeBobney bill. When it comes to when we're looking at what's going on in the homes, the majority of the projects, 80 to 85% of the projects going through, the property owner is reacting to something breaking in the home. Their air conditioning has gone out, their water heater is broke, and they are looking for an immediate fix to their project. There is no illusion of anybody sitting around the table saying, what can we do to be green tomorrow? And that is not the major focus of the HERO program. It is to provide a financing alternative, an option to these property owners who have a broken HVAC system that the contractor comes out and says, okay, here's your cost. And they look at the property owner and say, how are you going to pay for this? And your property owner has the options of using cash. They have the options of using their credit cards. And HERO is just another option for that property owner to take advantage of. It's not the only financing that contractors have in their tool chest when they're going out. And a lot of times those property owners can't wait 30, 60, 90 days to get their home equity line of credit so that they can fix the problem that they have that needs addressed immediately, if that helps.
Yeah, no, you did a real good job of explaining that to me, but the problem I have with this too, and I've been a contractor for most all my life, you know, what happens is that contractors are going to do an entire job, whether it be just a water heater or a much larger job. If they're not going to get paid until that job is completely done, a lot of times that increases the cost of it and different things too. And especially once you're in this area, I see how many didn't go ahead and there was only 63 that lost it because of fraud or unethical treatment or whatever, but there were over 1,200 that didn't renew their licenses. I think a lot of those are just ones that are leaving the state. But as we get higher and higher levels, those become more and more expensive. So what we're doing is we're kind of letting people say, hey, this is a quick fix, but boy, you really pay for it down the line. And again, it becomes something that's like a 30-year deal instead of just paying it over a few years. I don't know if that's so great, because we saw what happened with the housing bubble once, and this is almost adding to that bubble again for a second time, because things aren't going to keep going along like they have been forever. Also, a question on the Contractor State License Board. If I do something wrong, and believe me, if there's ever been a question, believe me, they side with the consumer. The contractor is always wrong. Why do we have another 23 or so people of ourselves? Is it because the Contractor State License Board has not investigated these quick enough? In other words, those 63 that were kicked off the PACE or the HERO program, were they also, did they lose their contractor's license, or is that something completely separate?
That's completely separate. We do work with the State Licensing Board, and they are very short-staffed on how they are able to investigate, but we do follow up with them on if we have a contractor that's on the State Licensing Board and has an issue. I did want to just go back to talk about the terms of the HERO program again. It's a voluntary assessment that property owners can choose to partake in. The terms go from 5, 10, 15, 20 year, and is only based on the useful life of the product that's being installed. The property owner is made aware of what that yearly amount is affixed to the property tax, so that they understand, again, it is financing and it does get repaid, and it gets repaid through your property tax, so your property tax does go up on a yearly basis. So there are specific terms that are associated with the financing piece, and the interest rates correspond with those terms. And again, it goes back to, you have property owners who are trying to fix something in their home. When we look at what our contractors and providing them with do's and don'ts, a lot of this comes out of the conversations that we've had with the real estate community, and them wanting to make sure that contractors who are dealing with the HERO program and or other PACE programs are providing a consistent message across the board and not trying to oversell something. So we are getting feedback from our real estate community, probably from the gentleman who spoke at your council meeting, in trying to, come up with compromises on what should be out there in the marketplace and what contractors who are registered. I mean, contractors have been in business way before HERO. We've had good contractors and bad contractors way before HERO, and we're now at a point where property owners actually have a place to call if they run into an issue, where you, as an elected body, are able to hear. And we can take action and work to resolve those issues, and really have good contractors, really be outstanding for the HERO program.
And it has, expanded. It's exploded. By any measure, you would say it's extremely successful. I would just caution, sometimes when something seems too good to be true, it might be. So thank you. You did a very good job explaining all those points.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jeffers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's no secret I have heartburn over our financing. We have the PACE program, so we administer the PACE program. And correct me if I'm wrong, we're administering the state-allowed PACE program, and we're exclusively contracting with a private firm for the financing. Am I boiling that down too simplistic, or is that fairly?
It's a little too simplistic, Supervisor.
Okay.
It is. What we are doing is WRCOG administers the WRCOG HERO program, which operates in the WRCOG subregion, And we also administer the California HERO program, which administers statewide outside of San Bernardino County and LA County. What WRCOG does is it is a bond issuer for the California HERO program and administrator. So we issue bonds to Renovate America,
Right.
which is the private entity that's purchasing the bonds.
And this ability to carry all this out is a state statute that allows us to do that?
Correct. Under AB 811, it allowed for the expansion of the contractual assessment law, which has been in place since Benjamin Franklin, to allow for public agencies to issue bonds. And there was also a bill, SB 555, which expanded the Mello-Roos Act, which is what Y-Green operates under for CFD.
Yeah, and I think the point that I want to make is, while we're administering all this, we've authorized and created a monopoly in the sense that the only firm you can finance with through our program is one that is identified and protected by us, and that is HERO, Renovate America.
Us being WRCOG or you being the county? Because the county unincorporated.
No, the county's authorized other
multiple
firms to come in, but WRCOG wanted to protect the monopoly that HERO, America Renovates, Renovate America.
We currently only administer the Renovate America HERO program. There was discussion on whether or not WRCOG should expand its role in administering multiple PACE providers. However, upon a lot of discussion, the Administrative and Finance Committee, as well as the Executive Committee body, elected not to go that route.
I participated in that meeting. I'm aware of how that went. It's just when we talk about that this isn't a government program and this is a voluntary program, those are partially accurate. I liked your statement earlier. It's a government-supervised program, and the government has determined who you may finance with and nobody else if you work through WRCOG. So we have to accept some responsibility in that we've created the monopoly. We've identified only one funding source. We're authorizing this program, but we're telling our contractors, you can't say this is a government program. In any other fashion, the taxpaying public is going to say, government is all over it. It's got its fingerprints all over this. So I liked your approach of maybe we should say something a little closer to government-supervised program. And when I was watching this on the news, the LA News the other night when they were attacking this, I mean, some of it was very unfair and some of it was very accurate. And when they pointed out, you can't, our contractors, you cannot say this is a government program. Well, that's not fair. I mean, that's just not fair. We are responsible for what happens because we are the administrators.
Correct. Thank you,
That's my
Supervisor.
point.
Thank you.
Did the vice chair or the second vice chair want to talk at all about their trips?
Sure. Going up to Sacramento was a very interesting time. We spent all day there and didn't get a chance to speak. So I got a chance to speak with the chairman, who's also the author of the bill, Assemblymember Dubovny, and he did have a comment that had I had a chance to speak, that the testimony that I would have given was more of a formidable opponent than the people that did speak, because there were tax collectors that were actually in favor of his bill that were testifying in opposition. But something else was brought up, which was that the ladies that came up to speak, they only allowed 2 speakers, and the 2 ladies that came up rushed to the table and, who gets there first gets to speak. And it was brought up that when people come up from Southern California, that they are not given an opportunity to speak like people from Northern California, and it was brought up by Assemblymember Cheryl Brown that there needs to be a mechanism for other people to speak besides those people that are from the Northern California area. But we did have a good conversation in his office, and hopefully it'll make a difference with him because, as Barbara said, it was entered into testimony at that time after the meeting. And now Ben gets to go.
So I'm taking some notes. I should sit towards the front of the class, not the back.
Sit in the first
and
row,
just be first
right
to the table. Is that right,
yes.
Kevin? Is that how that works up there? So, yeah, I've heard a lot of times, and I've gone up to Sacramento a few times for these hearing testimonies, and it is difficult sometimes when they say, who gets to speak. I would recommend if they ask again what they should do, it's called the Brown Act, and if they want to put that on us, they should put it on themselves. But I know Kevin raised that flag a few times, and it didn't go anywhere up there. Our trip to D.C. was a little bit more fruitful. We did get to speak with quite a few members of both the Senate and two members of Congress and a couple senators' offices. And it was very successful in that we're just up there trying to educate them and answer some of those questions, like, Jeff, the questions you were bringing up. We're trying to educate our Congress members on just that. And just make sure that they know that we're active in that when we hear concerns, we want to take a proactive step and make sure we're answering those concerns as best as we can. So, Brian, want to add to that?
I think that pretty much covers it. Moreno Valley.
Just in listening to the discussion from Mr. Jeffries and, of course, Jeff Hewitt, a few of the others, would it be prudent to maybe relook at that language, the can and cannot do language for the government component of it?
We can definitely do that, yes.
Maybe something more in the line as what Mr. Jeffries suggested.
For government oversight?
Yeah, it might be something worth looking at to modify while you're changing some of the brochures and stuff anyway. So.
Certainly.
Just a thought.
Okay, I see no one else in the queue, so I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes with 19 yeses and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a report from the League of Cities. Aaron Sassy, come and give us the good news.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. Before I do my legislative update, I did just want to give one tip that came out of our Lobby 101 seminar. So one thing you could do when you're going to Sacramento to testify is if you have a friendly legislator that is on the committee and you know there's not going to be a lot of testimony. I know we make a long trip from Sacramento, and that is a challenge. You could arrange with them to ask you a question when you're giving your Me Too testimony, and if they, more often than not, if they ask you a question, the chair will let you answer it, which then will allow you to at least get a few more words in. Not always, but that's sometimes if you can prearrange it in advance. But anyways.
Just real quick to share with you, that was tried, and the vice chair shut them down. Shut everybody down that tried to speak as opposing. So it's a good thought.
It's not always going to work, but
yeah.
Sometimes. At least worth trying. If you're making that expensive trip up there anyways. On the lobbying note, we actually did just have our lobby day last Wednesday. We had several people come up from Riverside County, and we were able to meet with all of our legislators, which was really good. We had a lot of really good meetings. The big themes for us were resources for cities to help with the homelessness issue. We talked about transportation infrastructure and the need for funding, and we talked about the need for affordable housing revenue. So those were kind of our themes when we went to our meetings. Interestingly enough, we were told on the transportation front that, once again, it's looking like there might be some sort of movement for a package, but then in our meetings, every legislator basically said, no, we don't think it's going to happen. So every time we start to have forward momentum, it seems like maybe there really isn't. So we'll see what's going to happen. I think the sense is if a package doesn't come forward at some point this year with the budget, probably is not going to happen. So hopefully we can get some funding worked out as the budget. The May revise is going to be coming out soon, so more information will be coming forward with that. Hopefully it's not too bad. We never really have a good idea of what's going to be in it, but I don't suspect there'll be any major changes from the January budget. A couple other items that I just wanted to address were a couple bills that we talked about in our lobby meetings. There's one that I just want to get on your radar. Right now, the league doesn't have an official position, but it's something that we should all be watching. We're still getting some information from our attorneys and some from our city managers, but it's SB 1102. It has to do with transient occupancy tax, TOT. Basically, what this bill will do is all of the online platforms, so Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, it would create more of a statewide mechanism for collecting the tax. So your money would go to the state, and then they would be responsible for then giving it to you. Exactly. Trust the state with your money, right? So it's definitely something you should all be paying attention to. We are talking to the author's office because the intent was to make it easier. So, I think he meant to do well, but we have some concerns with what this will actually look like. So we're soliciting some amendments and just working with him. But definitely keep that on your radar. Another bill that I just wanted to bring up is AB 2320. It has to do with drones and the prohibition of local regulation. This would basically preempt all local government regulation of drones. So if you have ordinances, won't matter. It prohibits operation of drones in any matter violating a protective order, constituting stalking, interfering with an emergency responder, contraband with state prisons. We're right now opposed unless amended, but basically it just ties your hands. It's not going to allow you to do much with drones in your cities. The
Aaron,
bill.
can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
We passed an ordinance in the county, and I'm pretty certain in the language we said, unless it's already covered by state or federal legislation. How could they oppose that?
The state does a lot of things that doesn't fit with what the local ordinances are.
All right. It was more of a rhetorical question, I guess.
Got to keep our local control. So you should all oppose that bill, AB 2320. We did keep on our hot bill list the AB 2693, which I know you just spoke about, so I won't go into that. Another bill that we're supporting that we did talk about in our meetings is AB 2734 by Atkins. Basically, this would establish some affordable housing funds. It would direct the Department of Finance to calculate the savings from the elimination of redevelopment and require that 50% of those savings go towards affordable housing. So something that would be beneficial if we can get that passed. One other bill that there's no position statewide for the league, but locally you should all be paying attention to this bill. It's SB 1387. This is by Senator De Leon. It would add 3 additional state spots to the AQMD board. So the governor, the speaker, and the pro tem would all be given the authority to add another person to AQMD. Basically, this is going to jeopardize our local control, take away the local voice, so you should all be opposing that bill. I know some of our other cities down in the AQMD area and our divisions will be likely taking positions of oppose, so all of you should as well. On Monday, we have our next division meeting. It's going to be hosted by the City of Palm Springs. It's reception at 5:30, dinner and program at 6. We are going to be having a speaker talk about the demographer's perspective on the California Voting Rights Act and districts. Should be really interesting. I know that the district election issue is very big right now. I know several of our cities are moving towards districts, and more cities are having to examine it because they've gotten the threats for lawsuit, for litigation. So I want to encourage all of you to attend. If you haven't RSVP'd, please get it in because we need to get the food ordered. But it should be a really good presentation. It's a little bit of a drive, but Spencer's restaurant is also amazing, so you should all come. With that, I'd just be happy to take any questions. Our hot bill list is out. I'll be sending that out so all of you have it. Obviously, there's always amendments and there's changes, but a little bit more information for all of you to start getting your letters in.
Thank you. And
Thank
blackmail us with food, right?
Exactly.
Banning.
Thank you, Aaron. I just wanted to ask you, you gave the AB bill for the housing, the affordable housing. Would you say that one again, please?
AB 2734, Atkins.
Thank you.
No problem.
Norco.
That's how often I talk. SB 1102, you said something about online. Can you explain what that bill is exactly?
So it's the online platform, so Vrbo, Airbnb. So it's the ones that you
anybody
can...
goes through online, but not necessarily if they knock on the door and go into the inn.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Just on that note, too, there will likely be another bill that's more from their industry perspective. It could be similar. We're not sure what it is yet, but there's likely going to be a bill that, so you might end up being faced with two. One sounds maybe better than the other, but I think the more important is to just let's get something that's comprehensive. We don't necessarily need legislation for this, but it'll be interesting to see how the bills compare once it comes out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your update.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have item 6C, presentation on homelessness in Riverside County. And Lisa Schreiner is going to get back.
Good afternoon. And thank you for having me here today. The intent of my presentation is to provide you with just a brief overview of how homelessness is being addressed here in Riverside County. Since I'm a representative of the DPSS, and we are the recipient of HUD funds, most of my presentation will refer to resources that are funded with HUD funds. Okay. I just wanted to start off by saying what may seem obvious, but is worth emphasizing, that addressing homelessness requires a coordinated effort among multiple agencies. It is too complex of a problem for any one agency or organization to address. And therefore, a county-city partnership is necessary to effectively address the impact of homelessness on our communities. Just a little bit about DPSS's responsibilities in this effort. DPSS is the lead agency that supports and manages the Homeless Management Information System. This is a database that homeless information is, or that houses information that is entered by providers who serve homeless throughout the county. DPSS is also the lead agency referred to as the collaborative applicant. In this role, DPSS provides support to the Riverside Homeless Continuum of Care. The Continuum of Care, or also known as the COC, is a network of about 60 private and public providers or agencies that serve homeless throughout the county, and is responsible for countywide planning and coordination of homeless services. As the collaborative applicant for the COC, DPSS is the recipient of about $10 million in HUD funding that is distributed to multiple providers, private and public, that support much of the homeless services and housing that is available across the county. Tied to receiving this funding comes some strings. So DPSS is responsible for submitting an annual application for funds, also known as the Notice of Funding Available, or known as the NOFA. Also responsible for tracking and reporting the outcomes of each funded agency's progress in serving homeless, providing technical assistance and administrative support to participating COC agencies, as well as planning and coordinating the annual point-in-time count. Most cities participated in the most recent point-in-time count in January, which serves as one of HUD's measures of how effective Riverside County Continuum of Care is in ending homelessness within the county. A decrease in our homeless count is just one of a few measures that HUD looks at to determine how effective we are as a continuum. When comparing point-in-time counts over the past 10 years, we have seen a 45% decrease in the amount of homeless that were counted. And such a decrease could be attributed to several factors, including an increase in our inventory of permanent, supportive, and rapid rehousing inventory, and that increase was really just over the past couple years. Targeted resources and efforts for homeless veterans, increased coordination outreach efforts, as well as a housing first approach, which I'll explain a little bit later. So in preparation for this year's count, we asked that all participating partners ask them to report homeless locations via a web link, which populated to the map that you're looking at. This map served as a guide for volunteers to find homeless individuals to interview on the day of the count. It also serves as a tool to plan for follow-up outreach efforts. And as ongoing outreach continues, other homeless locations will be added. Full utilization of this mapping technology will allow us to track patterns of homeless migration, help guide where homeless outreach and resources are needed, as well as track homeless who are housed. A promising model for responding to homeless encampments is highlighted on this slide. The ultimate goal of this model is to connect each homeless individual with a permanent house or place to live. This model requires a lot of planning, coordination, and involvement from both county and city partners, as well as nonprofit service providers. It is important to note here that effective outreach takes time. The average number of contacts that it takes for a homeless person to gain the trust and accept services is about 70 contacts. This model has proven to be much more effective than traditional approaches, which tend to move homeless from one area to another and does not ultimately resolve homelessness. The most effective resource to address homelessness is housing. This slide highlights our current housing inventory for homeless in Riverside County that is supported with HUD funding, as well as the shelters that are funded through Emergency Solutions Grant and county funding. Emergency shelters and transitional housing are temporary housing options. Permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing are housing solutions. 8 years ago, just to give you some perspective, there were only about 276 permanent supportive housing units available. Fast forward to current time, we have over 1,000 permanent supportive housing units, as well as 120 rapid rehousing units countywide. HUD's funding priorities are focused on evidence-based practices that center around housing first, a housing first approach through rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing. This approach supports connecting homeless to housing first and then wrapping them around with services once they are housed. Although we have significantly increased our inventory of permanent supportive housing as well as rapid rehousing, we are close to full utilization. Therefore, we need to consider applying for additional funding for permanent supportive housing units in the upcoming HUD application, as well as explore alternative funding. We've been relying as a county a lot on HUD funding. We need to explore alternative funding to increase our permanent housing options as well as affordable housing. A few efforts that are new or on the horizon for Riverside County include the Riverside Sheriff's Homeless Outreach Team, which was initiated in January and are tasked with training deputies across the county to focus on engaging and connecting homeless individuals to services and housing before enforcement of trespassing or other minor violations. Also, a coordinated entry system is in the planning stages and expected to be implemented this year. This system will allow for centralized reporting and tracking of homeless who have been assessed and are ready to be connected to housing. The 2016 HUD NOFA, or the application for funds, is anticipated to be released any time now and will provide us with an opportunity to apply for additional permanent housing. And lastly, a formalized county homeless task force was recently approved by the County Board of Supervisors to identify the gaps, barriers, and develop recommendations for a coordinated homeless response system. Future engagement is expected to include cities and service providers and to expand to a regional task force. So that was just, that felt like that went fast, but that was just a brief overview. We could be here for a long time talking about homeless issues, but just wanted to provide you a brief overview from the HUD perspective. Are there any questions?
I know Debbie Franklin, she's the one that asked for this presentation. I don't know if you want to make any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know that we have participated in the count. Has there been some thought in regards to the point-in-time count in particular about being able to do it a different way other than the prescribed 5 to 9 in the morning? Because those that are homeless know the program better than we do, and they hide. And we, as I don't know if you're aware, we do have a YouTube video that's going around about the Banning Hotel, and it is drawing people. They're saying they're being dropped off from other cities to come to our hotel, so to speak. So is there some way that we can help participate in working with this? If there are local nonprofits that are working, how do they connect with you to be able to help work on the programs that are local?
So every year that I think this comes up, some debate about how we approach the point-in-time counts, particularly the timing of that. And so HUD provides us with guidelines, but in different communities, because we work with, I think it's 30 different jurisdictions throughout the county. We've had, for instance, in Palm Springs, someone said, it doesn't make sense for us to go out this early. We believe we need to start deployment around 8:30. And so there's flexibility there to do that. I'm sorry, there was another part to your question.
How do we connect with you when we're working on our local issues so that maybe the funding can be spread a little bit more for local jurisdictions that are not necessarily covered by the county?
And are you a part of our COC, or do you have staff that are part of our continuum of care?
You're looking at them.
Okay. I think being active in our continuum of care, and within that there are multiple committees. Committee that focuses on housing, committee that focuses on funding, alternative to HUD funding, so just participation in the COC.
Okay. And last question, I know that there was a statewide homeless, I guess it would be it was a phone conference that was going on. It was put on by the League of Cities. We had several phone calls to deal with the issue. Were you a part of that at all, or did you hear anything about it?
I was not, but I'm going to look over my shoulder to my colleague, Jill. No, you were not. Okay.
There you go.
Steve was.
Okay, because I just wondered if something is going to come out of that. You know, we participated, and it was statewide. There were quite a few people on the calls, but if there's anything that's going to help for us locally with doing that.
You know what, let me follow up and find out, and I can certainly get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Bailey.
I just want to thank the county for their partnership, especially representing Riverside, the city of Riverside, and knowing full well it's a regional issue, and we see the dots on the map, and that homeless individuals don't know the borders between the cities. And so we need an all-hands-on-deck approach. That's for my Navy fellow veterans on the dais, or Marine veterans. But I appreciate the task force. I know Supervisor Jeffries was instrumental in bringing the task force to bear here in the long run. But we did learn some important lessons in the mayor's challenge to end veterans homelessness and the 25 Cities Initiative. So I would encourage us to continue to apply those lessons learned and best practices to the chronically unsheltered or shelter-resistant homeless that we do have out there. Absolutely. And knowing that we are fully committed to the city of Riverside to support the county-wide task force and the objectives and initiatives that will be created out of that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the challenges we're finding is you have a program that's good for people who want services or want housing. It's the homeless who don't want any of those, who want to be left alone and stay on somebody else's property. That's the real challenge, I think, with a lot of the homeless that are left that have turned down all offers for service. In the unincorporated areas, it takes about a year to get them removed from trespassing on private property. And in the meantime, they're having their campfires. Some are doing drugs. Recent cases, they're throwing their needles in the yards of the residents next door. It's quite a challenge, and those residents have to put up with that for a year, give or take, before you get through the process, the legal process. part of that is why we created the county task force to start coordinating those efforts in the unincorporated area. But of course, they're not unique to the unincorporated communities. Right. So just about everybody here shares that problem. Learned that the county is funding with a number of cities out in the Coachella Valley for a shelter out there. What's it, Robin, what's it called? Roy's? Roy's, yeah. So county general fund is kicking in about $750,000 a year for that one shelter, and I don't believe we're doing anything on the western half of the county with general fund money. So we've got some issues out here that we need to address going forward. If we could print money, we'd be in really good shape.
Yes, we would.
Really good shape.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have one question. On your Housing First, is that a program that you just started, Housing First?
It's an initiative that comes from the federal government, and so we've been working the past, I'd say, 2 years, getting our housing providers on board with that philosophy. It's not, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to make that happen within your organization. So I'd say we are in process of getting all our providers on board with that philosophy.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask if you had any data on how well that was working out. Because before that wasn't the case. You know, we had to make sure they were clean or whatever before we offered them housing. Correct. Now we're bringing them into Housing First and then getting them the wraparound services that you mentioned. And I was just wondering if you had any data.
Locally, I'd say our data is limited, but I think very soon we'll be able to do that. As part of our HUD application requires us to identify that agencies are exercising the Housing First approach. And so we can take a look soon, and maybe another year or two, we can take a look and compare their outcomes, because that's something that we definitely take a look at every single year and see if there's a difference.
Okay. Anybody else? We do Riverside. Mayor Bailey.
Sorry, a couple more challenges I would put out to elected officials on the dais. We had some great movement, I would say, with landlords by educating them through some landlord fairs. So I'd encourage you all to have those in your communities, and to encourage the Apartment Association to get involved. We have a good partner in the California Apartment Association in the Greater Inland Empire. Home Depot stepped up with some funds. I think Walmart provided a grant. And so there's private sector partners out there, nonprofit partners that you pretty much know about in your communities in the county. But the landlords are, I would say, lesson learned for us in the city of Riverside. And when we started talking to them about the wraparound services, as was mentioned, it wasn't just, we're going to put a homeless person in your apartment and say goodbye. We're going to be there every day to check on them and to support them with transportation and whatever social services they need. And so I'd encourage you to find out more about that, to get the landlords in the room. And I think I heard about what Mayor Garcetti did down in LA. He called all of them out in public, and for the veterans especially, and said, who is willing to house a veteran? And come up to the front of the room. And few of them did, and some of them didn't. But I would encourage you to be bold in this regard, because that's what's going to take to end homelessness. If we truly want to end homelessness, we've got to be bold and call people out on the carpet when needed, and encourage them to be a part of the solution. And landlords are a big part of the solution when we're looking for housing. There are some units out there that are not being used, and so find some advocates, educate the landlords, let them know that the city and the county are there to help and are not going to just drop them off and say goodbye, but we have services to get them out of homelessness permanently.
Excellent point.
Supervisor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly don't want to step on anyone's toes, the least of which would be my colleague from District 1. But District 5 and District 3 have been working together for some time, meeting with city folks and some faith-based folks on a partnership approach to addressing homelessness. And I think we've learned quite a bit over the last 6 to 9 months. And I'm certainly excited about the role I play on the Board of Governance with the Continuum of Care. And I think it has become obvious to me, at least, that government is not a permanent solution to the homeless issue. The Fed dollars that come through the continuum of care are not a permanent nor whole solution to the homeless problem. And certainly what I've learned as well over the many years, not only here but as a council member in the Southwest, is that many of us have erroneously felt like or thought that if we feed them for a day, we're somehow contributing to ending homelessness. I was educated by someone who has a very successful homeless program in North County, San Diego, who refers to that as the churn. It's where we do something for a brief period of time, and we feel good about it, but we're not solving the problem. So there are many issues that cause people to be homeless, not the least of which are substance abuse, mental health issues, unemployment, low employment, domestic violence. The list goes on, and each one requires a different solution. Supervisor Ashley and I will continue our efforts in partnership with folks from the Southwest, with folks from Hemet and San Jacinto, to try to arrive at a place where we have created an effective partnership in working as well with the public agencies. But it's important that we have corporate America with us, that we have the faith-based organizations with us to support us, to arrive at a place where people get housed, have wraparound services provided to address the issues that resulted in them being homeless, get them job training, and get them out so they can work and become tax-paying citizens. And we have a pathway forward to do that. And it's not going to be through Riverside County solving all the problems. It's not a problem that government can fix. So I'm hoping that we can move that agenda forward.
Any further comments? I just want to say one thing. Riverside, I would thank Mayor Bailey. They've taken the lead in the western part of the county, and I know it's not the mayor wouldn't call anybody out, but I think it's important that we call all the cities out, because Riverside can't do this by themselves, and we can't sit on the sideline and expect them to do it. Neither, just like out in the desert, one shelter there, one shelter here is not going to solve our issue. So all of us as cities really need to get behind this effort, contribute resources, and do what we need to do. So thank you for your leadership, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, next on the agenda, we have item 6D, the Western Riverside Council of Government Agency Draft Budget for Fiscal Year 2016-2017.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Executive Committee, my name is Ernie Reyna. I'm the CFO for Western Riverside Council of Governments, and I have for you today the fiscal year 2016-2017 draft agency budget. Okay, so what I'd like to do for you today is just give you an overview of what we're going to talk about. First, I'm going to talk to you about how staff puts together the budget, the structure itself, how we have 4 departments here, and within those 4 departments, we also have programs associated with each of those departments. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the expected revenues and expenditures and where we stand for this upcoming fiscal year, as well as the agency as a whole and each department. I'm going to show you some highlights of this year's budget, as well as show you where the budget has been, where it's going, and the schedule of budget review by WRCOG's committees. So first, let's talk about the structure and how it's set up. As I mentioned before, the WRCOG staff puts together the budget based on 4 departments. And at WRCOG, we do have a general fund department, an energy department, an environment department, and a transportation department. The general fund itself is comprised of 2 programs, what we call our default program or administration, as well as the government relations program. Contained within the transportation department is our TUMF, as well as the active transportation plan and clean cities. When moved down to the energy department, that houses our HERO program, both the local and statewide, as well as the Southern California Edison Partnership Program, our regional streetlight program, and the community choice aggregation. And last but not least, we do have our environmental department, which houses our used oil and solid waste programs. So each of these departments all have their own source of revenue. They've all balanced their own budgets within that department, and the budget itself is balanced within the agency. So beginning first with the general fund in more detail, revenue sources for the general fund include mostly member dues from the agencies. We also have the revenue that we transferred in for Beyond and the fellowship program. Expenditures within the general fund department include anything that's not charged to any other program, such as salaries for key employees. We also have the audit fees that we pay auditors there, bank fees, legal, and the rent. We have a total of 6 full-time employees being charged there right now, as well as 3 partially charged employees. The general fund itself is expecting about $3.9 million in revenues and anticipated expenditures of about $2.6 million. Moving over to the energy department. Anticipated revenues for the energy department are as follows. We'll look at just the statewide HERO program. We're looking at about $9 million for that program, of which about 7.6 are coming from the program and another 1.3 coming from recording fees. The local program is expecting just a little bit over $2 million, with about 2 coming from the program and about $1/3 coming from the recording revenue. We have about $4 million of carryover revenue we're bringing in from the HERO program. All in all, we have about $16 million for this particular department against about the same amount in expenditures of $16 million. Here we have 7 full-time employees being charged with 2 partially charged employees as well. Moving over to the energy department, we have the largest program here producing about $225,000 in revenue for used oil. We also have solid waste of about $93,000 and a little bit left over from recycling of about $14.5. So we're looking at about $333,000 in revenue against about the same amount in expenditures for a balanced department budget here. And here we only have 1 full-time employee being charged. Last, we have our transportation department. Something new we've done here that we haven't done in the past is that we're providing the full 100% of the TUMF budget, where we only charge 4% of the plan, the admin plan. So now we have 100%, which is the reason why we're showing $40 million in revenue for TUMF. And that portion of it, which is restricted funds to be used just for TUMF programs itself. We have the active transportation plan at about $200,000, and Clean Cities bringing up about $139,000, and our local transportation fund for about $700,000. All in all, this department is producing about $41 million in revenue against about the same amount in expenditures for a balanced budget in the transportation department. Currently, we have 4 full-time employees being charged here and 4 partially charged employees as well. Now to talk a little bit about the highlights of this year's budget. We mentioned revenue, so as an aggregate whole for the agency, we're looking at about $61.5 million in total revenue, broken down by the following departments. The general fund looking at about $4 million in revenue. Our energy department looking at about $16 million. Environment, $333,000. And our transportation department at $41.3 to come up with the $61.5 million we're anticipating. On the expenditure side for an agency, we're looking at just slightly under $60 million as a whole, broken down by the following departments, with general fund coming in at $2.6 million, energy just slightly under $16 million, environment at $332,000, and the transportation department at about $41 million to come back to that $60 million number. So far this budget, it began back on March 24th with my finance directors. We had a discussion about what all these line items meant. They asked some really great questions. They moved it forward. We took it to our Administration and Finance Committee back on April 13th. Our TAC was dark on April 21st, but we are going to come back to them the following month. We're here. So now it's time for a second review of the budget, which will begin next Wednesday at our Administration and Finance Committee. It will come back to this body on June 6th for a second review, finally to be moved on to the General Assembly on June 23rd. So our requested action for today, because this is the first round, we're not looking for approval, we're just looking for a discussion and any input you may have had. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
No, it's easy.
You're happy.
All right.
Great job.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, our next item, we have nominations for the WRCOG Chair, Vice Chair, and Second Vice Chair positions for fiscal year 2016 and 2017. The Admin and Finance Committee acts as a nominating committee, and do we have that slide up? Slide, thank you. I get my picture up for once. How about that? Hey, whenever you can get it, right? Anyway, the recommendation from the Admin and Finance Committee was Chair Ben Benoit from the City of Wildomar, Vice Chair Debbie Franklin from the City of Banning, and Chuck Washington, Supervisor from the 3rd District. So that's the recommended. Any questions? I'll take a motion then. Motion by Hemmett and a second by Paris. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes 18-0. Thank you. Our next item is the Western Riverside Council Government Transportation Activities Update. Christopher Gray, who likes baseball in Lake Elsinore.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chris Gray from WRCOG. Thank you to Mr. Tisdale for hosting me at a Lake Elsinore Storm game. My 8-year-old daughter really loved it, and she got bored. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. And first of all, we're giving you some updates on a number of efforts we have going on. First is our TUMP Nexus study update. As many of you know, the Nexus study is a technical study we need to use to update the fee. It's something we've been working on for a couple of years now. We have 3 remaining elements of the study. The first is to review the roads in the network, get final input from the cities. That is complete. Our consultant has gone through and verified all of our cost data to make sure we have the most updated information. That is complete. And we are now currently redoing the Nexus study based on a series of new growth forecasts we got from SCAG. So on this item, we'll be presenting, we've already discussed the roadway network with the Public Works, your various Public Works directors, and we'll be taking some final action on that in May to make sure that we've got all the latest comments from the cities. So we're still on schedule to have a draft Nexus study come out in the summer. We're expecting you to take action on the Nexus study in the winter after doing outreach with cities, developers, and the like. And then if the Nexus study is approved, the final updated fees would take effect in July. Another of our efforts is doing our fee comparison study. We understand that fees are charged for a variety of reasons by a variety of agencies on new development, and we want to understand how those fees relate to each other, and also understand some of the larger economic issues of development, how land costs, interest rates, and such affect development decisions. We've been working closely with your various planning directors, and we had a meeting in April to present some development prototypes and also some comparable cities. So, for example, not only are we looking at all of the WRCOG cities, we're also looking at cities like Beaumont, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, a number of locations in San Bernardino County, both large cities such as Ontario, San Bernardino, but also some smaller ones, Chino, Hesperia. We're going as far south as San Diego County, and then also looking at some cities in Orange County as well. And our consultant has recommended that we identify a series of standard development prototypes, meaning these are example developments to make the comparison easier. These were presented to the planning directors. They're a single-family unit, a multifamily development, a retail building, and an industrial building. And we're expected to be done with this study in the summer of 2016. We are also updating our admin plan. The administrative plan is a document we use to administer the TUMP program, and it includes a variety of information such as when the plan is updated, what some of the definitions of various uses are. We brought a series of recommended changes to the Public Works and the planning directors in April, and then we'll be bringing those forward in May and June. The executive committee will be asked to approve any changes because that is the process that we use, and so you'll have final say over all the language in the plan. We are also updating our active transportation plan. We have talked about this previously. A couple key items is that we have a survey which is open for both residents and staff members regarding inputs and concerns about active transportation. Another item I wanted to bring to your attention is that we are currently finalizing our collisions analysis, which identifies locations where there are large numbers of bicycle and pedestrian collisions throughout the region, and we'll be sharing that with our planning directors and public works directors in June, and you as well. And that plan is still on schedule to be completed in fall of 2017. This is grant funded through a grant from Caltrans. And then finally, the last item I want to bring to everyone's attention is we are going to be holding 2 bicycle pedestrian safety workshops. These are being done through Riverside Community College. We've hired some outside instructors. Our first workshop will be in the city of Riverside at RCC's campus on May 20th. And our second one will be at the Moreno Valley campus on June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. These are workshops intended for older cyclists, not children, but people age 14 and up, to learn how to ride bicycles safely and also ride on the roads. So if you know of anyone who's interested, I would encourage you to sign up for these classes. The classes are limited to 20 each, but they are free, and these are paid for through the same grant, which is funding our active transportation plan. Mr. Chairman, so with that, I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Director Gray? I think we've worn them out along the
Great.
meeting. Thank you, sir. Next, we have a report from committee representatives. SCAG. Anything from SCAG? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For SCAG, we just have our General Assembly this week, so we don't have any reports from the last meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else from SCAG? Okay. And from the Southern California Air Quality.
Just really quickly, there's a program coming up at AQMD where we have some grant money for electric lawnmowers. These are for government agencies. It's right-on, large-size lawnmowers. They're fully electrified. They're a really, really nice product if any of your city maintenance yards looking at updating their lawn equipment, or if you have a school district that's looking at doing that as well. Please let Ruth Ann Taylorberger let her know, or give me a call, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with that grant operator. If we can get enough of these things, then LA County School District doesn't get one more bus done. So that's my goal. One less bus for them, but we get a lot of lawnmowers. So anyway.
Okay. And for CalCog, they meet quarterly, and they haven't had a meeting. Okay. Next, we have a report from our executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things to report on. First off, just as a reminder, our General Assembly is set for June 23rd at Morongo for, I think, the 11th year in a row. So, again, thank you for that. Our speaker is Prime Minister Julia Gillard. We're about three-quarters full already. So within 2 months to go, we're already closing in on a sellout. So we're excited about that. Also wanted to mention, I did mention this last month, that in June, the 7th Annual Statewide Energy Efficiency Forum is being held in Riverside, I think in large part due to the successes that we've all had collectively here in Riverside. There is an elected officials dinner forum that I did mention last month. I will provide you with more information on that in case your schedules allow for you to attend. Also wanted to mention, speaking of SCAG's General Assembly, WRCOG was very fortunate to have been one of, I think, 7 SCAG award recipients for Project Excellence. And this year on Thursday during the luncheon, we will be receiving SCAG's Sustainability Award for Achievement in Integrated Land Use and Transportation for the TUMP program. We're pleased with that. Also, we were notified in the last week or so that WRCOG will be receiving 2 awards from the American Planning Association California Chapter Inland Empire Section. One is a Best Practices Award for a Land Use, Transportation, and Water Quality Framework document that we recently completed. And then the TUMP is a 2-time winner. We're also winning an award for that. And then also wanted also to mention that our chair, Mayor of the City of Lake Elsinore, is receiving the Inland Empire Section Award for an elected official for being a planning advocate. So we're really pleased to announce that.
I know. Good pictures.
Let me see. In June 1st, we will be holding our 2nd public engagement seminar. Some of you might recall that a few years ago we had Pete Peterson. Pete is, if your name is familiar to you, Pete was the Republican nominee for Secretary of State in the last election, narrowly losing to Mr. Padilla. Pete is now the Dean of the School of Public Policy at Pepperdine University. And a couple years ago we had him out, and it provides a really, really good seminar on public engagement. So we would encourage you to encourage other elected officials and your staff to attend this session. It will be held down in Temecula. So thank you to the City of Temecula for hosting that session. And then last, I believe, May 12th, we will be working with the City of Paris to conduct a bus and walking tour of the Paris downtown, so you can see all the great things that have been occurring in that city's downtown over the course of the last few years, including a community green garden. You'll obviously see the Paris Valley Line Metrolink station. You'll see great examples of mixed use and senior housing and transit-oriented development, and all of the placemaking efforts that have been occurring there in the city of Paris. So we're really excited about that. I think space is limited to about 40 individuals. Also, special thank you for RTA for providing the bus to take us there and back. So if you're interested in that, you can either meet us down in the city downtown, probably around 8:30 or 8:45, or you can meet here to board the bus at 8 o'clock on May 12th. And that concludes my, oh, it does not conclude. One more thing. You might also recall that at the end of last year, the executive committee for both WRCOG and the RCHCA agreed to move administrative responsibilities for that agency to WRCOG. The RCHCA is responsible for oversight and administration of about 40,000 acres of endangered species habitat for the Stevens kangaroo rat. We just completed our first budget, draft budget for the year, and I think the move was made with some cost savings in mind, and I think we're achieving that. I know Princess is here in the audience. She did a great job putting together the budget, and so you can see here, so the first year we're realizing, I think, what the objectives of the merger were intended to achieve. Also, you see those people in the truck there. They're not prisoners. We had a scheduled procrastinating Earth Day event this past Saturday out at the Lake Matthews Reserve. Had a bunch of folks all ready to go, and then it just opened up and started pouring on us. So we canceled it, and we will look to reschedule that. We'll get the notice out on that, and if you're able and willing to help us out with that, we'd love to have you come along. And, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any items for future agendas? No? Any general announcements? Okay, I just have one quick announcement. Councilman Mark Bartel, he resigned. He works for the gas company, and he got a big promotion, so he's moving to Santa Maria on April. So we'll be getting a new representative from San Jacinto. So other than that, I will turn it over to Steve for a closed session report.
Okay, we do have two closed session items. A conference with labor negotiator and performance evaluation. After the closed session, you'll see that there is a open session item, which we have in the agenda in case that's necessary. So we're going to ask that the board members move down to the audience where we'll hold the closed session. Well, yes, but his salary goes up.